What exactly does auto insurance cover for drivers here in Woodstock? And is there anything here that makes it different than anywhere else?
Generally across the state of Georgia, it's the same. So it's not really regulated by city, state, or zip code, county, anything like that. Um, all auto insurance, you're required to have at least liability. So that would be the standard across the board. And then depending on, type of assets in your household, type of vehicle, um, maybe level income, if they're loan on the vehicle, you would need to add additional coverages at that point.
Okay. How do insurance companies determine what I pay for in insurance or for insurance in Woodstock?
It's a great question. I get it a lot actually. So I'll have a customer call in and say, "Hey, my neighbor, we have like cars. Our houses are the same. We're about the same age. Why am I paying more, John?" And there's so many factors. To be honest with you, about 20 years ago, I could be in a restaurant, have a conversation with you, and probably get within 10% of premium. If you told me what was going on, I could probably get pretty good. Nowadays, with the internet, with the availability of so much information that we can gather from third-party vendors, we now go by algorithm. And so many factors in obviously location where the car is parked most, right? So we use our home location. Type of vehicle is huge. The driver, right? What kind of driver is it? What's their age? Are they a lead foot? Are they getting accidents and tickets? We're looking, play bumper cars, right? Is there young kids in the house? Is there other drivers in the house with access to the vehicle that, tend to
Really?
not drive well? Sure. Um,
So like they wouldn't be a driver on the policy, but they have access to it? Y'all consider that too?
Sure. So they're either going to be added or excluded.
Okay.
So you really can't exclude them from the policy unless they have their own insurance. Otherwise, we will collect premium for it because we're on the hook, right?
Right.
So what we're saying is, hey, for instance, if we give you 100, 300 in liability, we're on the hook for 100,000 per person. If anybody in your household lives there, takes that vehicle and causes an accident.
And it actually has happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was 19, fresh out of high school. My senior year, I had built out my car like Tokyo Drift style. I mean, I had the body kit,
Yeah.
lower and everything. Well, I took a vacation with my girlfriend, and the first night I was gone, my brother got hold of my keys, and he didn't know how to drive a manual. We had ditches. We didn't live in a suburb. We lived way out in the country. And my mom didn't tell me till I was on my way home on purpose.
Yeah.
But he took my car, went it straight into the ditch, destroyed it, and he wasn't a driver on the insurance.
Yeah. So two factors there. If they're a resident of the household is when you need to add them to the policy if they have access to the vehicle. If they're not, it's under what's called permissive use. So if I give you permission to drive my car, even though you don't reside with me, I'm also giving you permission to be covered under my policy.
How about this? He was not old enough to be driving a vehicle. He didn't have a driver's license.
So at that point, as a customer, you would have to state that. And then at that point, it would be criminal and would not be on the hook for covering it.
Would I be able to cover that on my home?
No.
Really? So I'm just out.
Mm-hmm.
How do I prevent that? What do I cover? What kind of coverage do I cover myself for?
So number one, you would need to have the appropriate liability insurance, right? Typically in the state of Georgia, the minimum is $25.50, $25. What that means is $25,000 per person, up to $50,000 for the total accident. And why am I drawing a blank on the 25?
I threw you off with the driver's license.
You did. Yeah, property damage. So what you hit. So first one is by individual. Second one is total individuals. Third one is whatever you hit, the property damage, right? So obviously when you think about that, $25,000 for a single person injury is not very much. You think about an ambulance has to show up. You think about multiple visits to a hospital. If they're admitted to the hospital, gone, right? Think about the same case if there's 3 people in the vehicle that you hit. Well, your max is up to 25 per person or 50 for the entire accident. So again, very low limits. And I would be an advocate in the state of Georgia for them to raise that. And the reason is because the difference in liability coverage in each stage, so going from 2550 to like 5100 is minimal. It really is. I mean, it's less than probably a cup of coffee a month. So it can really be a game changer on the backside of an accident.
For people listening, because I'll be honest, I'm 35, and up until the last 5 years, I didn't really pay attention when people said the limits and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
for the people watching the video, like kind of explain, these limits are not to save money. It's to save your rear end. Like these are minimal coverage limits, like dollar amounts to help you. Because I don't think that's really transparent enough. Like at least it wasn't for me.
So I always say insurance is the greatest gamble in life. And here's why. It's because people gamble their assets against what they're paying per month or annual, whatever means that they pay it, right? And so sometimes people make a huge gamble in the fact that their biggest asset is their home. Most people, that's their biggest asset, right? Or gamble against, maybe they have young kids that are driving and they're only carrying a 50-100, right? Well, if they're under 18, the whole household's responsible, right? Mom and dad's responsible. So what I tell everybody is do the very best you can, right? Obviously, it's got to be affordable to some point. It's got to fit a budget. But there's a happy medium there. And that's what I love about liability insurance isn't drastic in between the different coverages. So as you go up, it's not like you're being hit with another $1,000, right?
Right.
You're talking like maybe $150 every 6 months. So it's really minimal for what it covers. And so that's what a local agent does for you rather than calling an 800 number. If you get on an 800 number, God help them. There is a 18 to 22-year-old put himself through college. He's got this call center job. He's not going to ask the questions. He's just going to put he's going to sell you. And whether that's a 5100 or 2550, he's there to make money so he can go party on the weekends. This is not his career. It's not what he set out to do. And there's nothing wrong with that except he's putting people at risk, right? Whereas if you have a local agent, I've been doing this 30 years. I know I look younger than that, but I'm on 31st year and I've got the horror stories. I've seen things happen and I'm constantly engaging my own team and giving them real world examples of why it's important that we make sure that we have the appropriate conversations and we go through the liability coverages and we find out what the assets are in the household, right? What's at risk is the first question we ask. And an agent years ago gave me probably the best advice. He said, start with the end in mind. So I would, in your case, ask you, Andrew, this happens. You just wiped out a family, right? Let's talk about, in the worst case scenario, the worst accident that could probably happen, what's at risk for you? And as we start detailing that, it's a real eye-opener for most customers because they're like, man, I didn't think about that and how easily things can happen. An example of that is if you're ever driving down the road and maybe you're distracted, you're checking out a cool car driving the other way, a new restaurant opened, maybe you look at your phone and you hear the little buzz, right? Zzz, what's it telling you? It's telling you to correct the car, right? You're kind of going off the road. What if someone's standing there in that split second, right? Your whole world changes. And if you're not covered properly, just that moment of just kind of looking to your left and not realizing it's over, right? As quickly as you buzzed on that wheel, there could have been someone standing there. And so, I don't want to be like graphic or put fear, but that's the real world conversations we're having at the agency level.
So my wife's an ER nurse and they have they call it autoped is what it is, auto pedestrian. It happens almost every other day, like every time she's on a shift, she gets at least one. It happens a lot more.
It's terrible.
And then, Woodstock, you're basically Atlanta. That's pretty close to Houston, so I would assume that y'all's wrecks and the way people drive.
Huge metro area, right?
You'll have as much you'll have a lot of construction in that area.
Always construction, but it's also parts of our freeways are 6 lanes wide, right? That's how much cars, and you'll be stopped. So it's 6 lanes wide and stopped at certain times of the day. It just tells you how many vehicles are on the road at a regular interval.
It's a numbers game, right? So it's like time on the road, amount of people. Something's eventually going to happen.
Right. And then you have people passing through, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they're fatigued. They've been driving 6-7 hours, right? Their reflexes aren't there. So just when you think about what a vehicle is, it's a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 or 5,000 pound weapon in some cases, right? It could be very dangerous for multiple reasons. Just the fatigue, the quick. We live in a push button society, and so we're constantly have the little gizmos, and the cars have all these different things, and now our screens are getting wider, and our Apple, and we have so many distractions inside the vehicle, and it's only getting worse, right? And so, and as good as I might be as a driver, what about the other 200 people on the road, right? So it's just having those open conversations and just explaining what's at risk and then working backwards, budget friendly, right? And
Man, honestly, I really don't think this conversation is, I don't want to say advertised, that's a bad term, but like, I'm glad we're doing this because I don't have access. Like, it's just insurance, right?
Yeah.
Get the best rate, get this, get
Yeah.
that. Like, I never saw an ad or terminology, or if I go to look something up, like, it's not, hey, let's make sure, let's have a conversation. Let's make, so like, I really think that needs to be pushed harder and more, because it's just not like everybody thinks about insurance like, oh God, I gotta go get insurance.
well,
You know?
and when you think about it, when did we get our first insurance? We're 16. We're stupid. We're dumb. We're not going to do the research, right? We just want to drive. Give me my keys, right? Most of us go on our birthday, get licensed, we're excited, we get insurance. Who we rely on? Our parents, right? Or someone says you need this insurance. And we buy it and we're off and running. But then time goes on and you start building a career and you start gaining assets, and then you get married and you have kids, and then pretty soon you have a nice house, and all these things happen. But if you're not addressing the coverage you had at 16, the world has changed.
I remember that conversation.
Assets have changed. And you could go out to dinner with the same friends that were 16 that are now 25 with you. And what's the conversation going to be? Oh, I carry this, I carry that, right? Again, you're not getting the right information because everybody's asset level is different. And so that's where a trusted insurance agent, that's where they're invaluable, is because if you find the right person that takes the time with you, you can lie in bed knowing, I got it, it's covered, it's right. And then the worst time for you to find out you have the wrong insurance is at the time of an accident, right? And so any of that pre-work you do now, it's invaluable.
I think that's the conversation that needs to be talked about more. It's just the advertising out there for insurance just isn't that, and I think that is a pretty big deal. In Woodstock, what is the uninsured motorist coverage, and do I really need it? And
Yeah. So how vehicle insurance works is everybody insures against everybody else. So the first portion of the liability is the owner of the vehicle is insuring the other person that they're going to hit, right? So you flip that, and your vehicle gets struck by somebody that has 2550, but the injuries in your vehicle are higher than that. That's where your uninsured motorist or underinsured motorist kicks in, right? So if they don't have insurance, uninsured motorist, right? If they do have insurance but it's not enough, underinsured motorist, right? And so that's an opportunity.
So there's underinsured motorist and uninsured?
Yeah. In some states, that's a blended coverage. So, I know the policies out in California, for instance, it's one coverage, it's not split, whereas other states will actually split it out. So it really depends state by state. But again, that coverage is so minimal, we throw it on every policy. I mean, you're talking a few bucks a month.
I forgot who my mom had, but she ran into a situation where the other person that pulled out in front of my sister had like some fly-by-night insurance agency, and they ran. But they couldn't claim it on uninsured motorists because they had insurance.
Right.
But the insurance company couldn't get a hold of the person. They weren't answering their phone.
Yeah.
So they had to end up filing it on their own insurance and had to cover it.
Yeah. And, fortunately they had the coverage there.
Does auto insurance cover me if I'm driving somebody else's car? I think we partially touched on this, but
yeah. So the insurance follows the vehicle first. So whoever is the registered owner of the vehicle is required to have at least liability on the vehicle. And then from there, as a driver, yours kicks in secondary. So if I'm driving your vehicle and you have 2550, but it's more, if the cause of the accident is higher than what the insurance covers, then the driver of the vehicle, which has his policy, will kick in. So in other words, the insurance on the vehicle, if it's not enough to cover the accident or the injuries involved, that's what I was looking for, then the drivers will become secondary.
Okay.
So what ended up happening is they'll submit the claim against the owner of the vehicle's insurance first, and then the driver's insurance secondary.
For the Woodstock area, specifically, what are the most common auto insurance mistakes people make?
Probably underinsuring would be the most.
Why do you think that is?
Save a buck. Usually that's where it comes back to, is people just try to save money. But think about advertisements for insurance companies, right? What's it always about? You never see a Geico, a Progressive, or anyone says, hey, Call us about the best coverage for your family. It's always about 15 minutes to save money. 10 minutes to save you money. Save you money, save you money, save you money. And there's that 800 number call you're going to do and get somebody on there that's not really looking out for your best interest, just trying to save you money because why? If he writes your policy, he gets paid commission.
Speaking of that, now that my wheels are turning, there's a statewide minimum on coverage, right? So it's not liability. It's what's it called when it's like the bare minimum, because liability insurance is technically
minimum liability would be what's only thing required on a
it had something to do with the banks. When was the last time that was reassessed? I wonder, because like the cost on a vehicle nowadays is, I mean, my truck was $60,000 cost to repair.
Yeah, liability versus physical damage is two different worlds, right? And so I think on a regular basis that comes up.
Really?
Adjusted, not very often. It should. To my earlier point, I would love to see the minimums be more like 5,100 instead of a 2,550.
Yeah,
years ago,
what's 25
I will say,
cover?
Years ago it was 1,530.
Okay.
So that was probably 15, 20 years ago. So that's kind of the length it's been. So it's come up a little bit, but you're right. I mean, every vehicle out there, it's insane. I remember my first F-150, was like 28,000. Now they're 60, right? And now you have...
Oh, they're way more than that.
Well, yeah, you have F-250s that are over $100,000. You have the...
I mean, by the time... I've had a 800 credit score. I've had 0% interest on every single, but I was due during COVID.
Yeah.
I have a 4% interest rate on my truck. I'm going to pay $85,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the cats just went out, and it was still within warranty. But that was like a $6,500 job.
Yeah.
Just to replace the catalytic converters.
Yeah. Well, and then you don't even get into the electric cars, right?
Oh, yeah.
So most electric cars, if they're hit, they're completely totaled. They can't do anything with it.
Really?
Yeah. So they don't even repair. If the battery's been damaged, it costs more for them to try to replace the battery because it's the whole bottom of the vehicle.
I didn't think about that.
So they scrap it.
It's like $7,000 or something like that to redo it, like to do the battery. Wow, I didn't know that. Well, I guess most of them are unibody, so they're probably bent anyways. So
yeah, and so you see Tahoes, right? Suburbans, Escalades. You see Expeditions. Every one of those is pushing 100,000 nowadays. And so you're sitting with a 25, 50, 25. You're gonna pay out 25,000 towards that. What happens then? Well, now they come after you, right? So once the insurance companies pay out, we're done. We're out of the picture. Once that 25,000 or 50,000 or 100 is paid out, we're out of the picture. At that point, that's when your personal assets are at risk.
Is roadside assistance through my auto insurance worth it, or should I consider going private in Woodstock?
Good question. Nowadays, I think, obviously I'm biased, so I think we do a really good job with our motor club. We respond to everywhere, anywhere. We contract the same providers that other means would contact, right? I do think that the manufacturers do a good job as well. So, if Chevy or Ford offers their own, they usually do a pretty good job as well. So again, we're just third-party people. We're just contacting third-party guys. So you'll have a mom and pop that might own 3 or 4 tow trucks, and they might get a call from Allstate, or State Farm, or Farmers, or Progressive. Who knows, right? We don't own the towing services. We just contract with them. And so really it's the power of the company representing you. And Allstate's the second largest insurer in the country, State Farm being the first. So Farmers, I think about the top 4, right? In auto insurance, now Progressive and Geico's up there. And so obviously those third-party vendors want to keep those companies happy because they want to stay on those lists when people are stranded or need gas or need something. So that's the power working for you, is because they've got that leverage. And so if they're not responding in a timely manner, they're going to hear from the larger company, and the claims adjuster say, hey, why aren't you out there? He's stranded, right? And they don't want to risk future business. And so I think it's pretty level playing field these days than what's been.
I will say, when I had Liberty Mutual, I've had to do roadside, and then when I had Allstate, 2 totally different experiences.
Yeah.
My wife broke down in California, and I mean, Allstate, they stayed on top of it. Like, we didn't have somebody out there, or at least on the way in 15 minutes. Like, hey, I called them, not answering. I'm gonna get you somebody else. Yeah. Like, it was a lot of they called us 5 or 6 times within.
Power of the size of the company, right? They
Yeah.
employ more people. We've got more adjusters, right? We're a lot larger company than the Liberty Mutual, and so you've got the bandwidth of agents to be able to stay on top of their individual claims more often. So at the end of the day, I have it on my cars because I have young drivers. I have a 20-year-old daughter, and the last thing I want is her sitting on the side of the road, trying to figure something out on her own, out of the car, or waiting on me, or anything. We're going to try to
And
dispatch someone as quickly as we can. I'm probably en route, anyways, but
that's also a very high risk situation. Like more people, I've known a few people in my class that step out the car to go look at something, and people are like, people's eyes cause them to drift, so they're looking at somebody on the side of the road, they end up drifting into them.
Right.
And I've known a few people who's gotten killed.
It happens more often than not, unfortunately. I had a case growing up that a guy came in and we wrote a life insurance policy. He gave me the check, which bound the policy. He left my office, went home, showered, changed, and went to the airport to pick up his fiance and never showed up. And so she called around, and finally that had happened is he got a flat tire, pulled over on the side of the highway. He was bent down, struck by a vehicle, and was killed. And terrible, right? Right before his wedding. He's 20-something years old, the whole life ahead of him. But fortunately, life insurance, because we took payment, it paid out to her, and it was huge for her as a young.
Not the best situation.
Wasn't necessarily a widower yet, but certainly the impact of his funeral and all of that was taken care of financially, and so it was huge. But again, to your point, it's funny, like almost golfing. It's like, hey, don't hit in the water. What are you gonna do? You're gonna hit in the water, right? It's for some reason when you just think about something, that's where you point the car.
I've had that. I've looked over and I'm like, that's why everybody slows down. Like, quit looking at what's over on the other side of the road.
Yeah,
not gonna change anything. Okay, in Woodstock, Georgia, how often should I review my insurance policy?
Every year. I mean, every time you
Yearly?
make a change, that's what I say. Unless absolutely nothing has changed. That means you did no remodeling on your home, you didn't do anything on your vehicle, you didn't pay off your vehicle, no modifications. I mean, if you literally did nothing, then you probably don't have to reach out. But we move at lightning speed now in this world, and so chances are something's happened. And sometimes you don't realize it. Sometimes just a quick call and letting the agent just kind of poke some questions at you, maybe a 2-minute conversation, it may lead into something bigger. So,
which, I mean, y'all have a lot of new products coming out. So is that something that you circle back with on your customers, or?
Yeah, because our large customer base, I can't pick up the phone. I don't have enough people in my office to physically do that, especially with incoming calls, right? So we do a lot of email, a lot of notification that way. But yeah, things are constantly changing. A big one in the home world is replacement costs on roofs. For a long time there, it was always on a schedule. Now we have a replacement product, which is huge. So letting our customers know.
I didn't know that.
Letting our customer knows it exists and take advantage of that because it's a huge benefit.
Oh, that's and is that something just your agency does? Is like making sure, like, send out the emails, or does like a
Yeah, it's automated. So once we get information through, then we'll draft an automated email and then hit the button. And I think there's 26,000 households now, so it takes a little bit to get out, a few days, but it goes out to everybody as long as we have an email on file.
Does auto insurance cover damage from severe weather, and if so, what kind?
Sure. So the biggest one I can tell you is hail. Hail damage is huge. You see those TikTok videos and it's like softball. I can't imagine. I've never experienced it myself personally, but you see where these balls of ice have gone through windshields. And you think about your windshield, I've had a bird hit it going 60 miles an hour and just ride it, whatever, right?
Yeah.
A rock, nothing. It may chip it or give you but think about how big or how strong that thing has to do to go through a moonroof or windshield. And then if it doesn't hit the glass, what if it hits the vehicle itself? A lot of vehicles are made with aluminum now, so it doesn't take much to cause a big dent. And so you're seeing, or carbon, or whatever the vehicle is. So yes, it falls under comprehensive coverage, and so you'll have your deductible. There's two deductibles for physical damage to your vehicle. One is collision, so just think I collided with something. And one is comprehensive, think of it being parked or stolen. Caveat to that is an animal. So, in like the Ackworth and Woodstock area, there's deer, and it happens quite a bit where a deer has its own mind, and so sometimes while it's colliding with you, and you really can't collect collision insurance on it, so it falls under your comprehensive. But other than that, if it's not moving or it's being stolen, it's comprehensive. And if it's in motion or collides with an object, it's collision.
Collision. Like, is there anything I need to know if I'm moving to the Woodstock area that might be special about auto insurance or just in general for the? Because I know like down in Galveston, like there's saltwater is a big deal. It's for something very specific to that area. Is there anything specific to y'all's area there?
Not off the top of my head. From a general theft rate, it's a lot lighter theft rate than other areas, near Atlanta.
Really?
Yeah, and so
I would have considered. Was it like just a more suburb area, or?
Yeah, more suburbs. So just there's less crime in that area, and so including stealing vehicles, and so in those areas, your premiums tend to be a little bit more favorable because again, your actuaries are looking at probability. So insurance is again about that gamble, right? It's all based on probability, and so where you're driving around, where your car is parked, all that kind of factors in. So generally in our area, some of the streets are a little more narrow, but other than that, just having the conversation about you personally and your assets and what matters in your household is the biggest question, rather than so much where you live.
In Woodstock, Georgia, does adding a teen driver do anything to your coverage, and what does that look like?
Yeah, it does a lot. Mainly your premiums, but we can manage that, right? And so, first off, why? Why is there such an increase? And it goes back to inexperienced driver. So whether they're 16 or they're 20, or maybe someone in their 60s, 70s, 80s just getting licensed, whatever the age is, it's more about experience.
Well, I hope they're not just getting their license in their 70s.
They're not. More about experience, right, than anything else. And you think about driving a vehicle, how awkward that is when you first get in there, right? You got mirrors to manage. You're looking over your shoulder. You're trying to reverse, trying to go forward. It just takes time to get really comfortable in the vehicle. So that all plays a factor. Insurance companies know that. And so we've got to collect appropriate premium to offset the chances of those claims happening, because that age group, that new driver age group, accounts for a large percentage of the claims that we see, big or small, right? And so first off is it's a question about the assets that we're covering, right? So we start in there and add the child to the vehicle and seeing what happens there.
So what does that look like if, I don't have kids yet, but like I came inside and I'm going to talk to you and say, look, I haven't bought them a vehicle yet.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting ready to, I don't have a vehicle, so I don't know how I'm going to get a premium checked, but it's like, what can I do here? Like, what kind of direction can y'all help me with?
Yeah. So first off, we start with the vehicles on the policy, right? And so I can do a mock endorsement and tell you, okay, if you do nothing else and just add a driver, you don't add vehicles, here's the impact to your policy, right? At the same time, we're going to look at your liability coverage to make sure it's high enough. If it's not, I'm going to have a conversation there and also talk to you maybe about an umbrella. Why? Is because as long as that child is in your residence or under 18, you're liable as the parent, right? And so your assets are at risk. So we're going to have that whole conversation first. Then I'm going to talk to you about types of vehicles, general types of vehicles. Obviously, no sports cars. The rule of thumb is that if it has two doors, don't buy it for your child. Lifted vehicles, any modifications, things like that can add premium. But a safe bet is a four-door sedan. If it gets really good gas mileage, it's 4 doors, it's usually good on insurance. It's practical. If you have an older car lying around or a family member wants to sell it to you and it's something that's 20, 30 years old, not worth much, still drivable, that's a great option there, because now you're not taking physical damage on the vehicle. So you're removing comp and collision, just worried about the liability. Well, that cuts your premium in half on that vehicle. So lots of areas to help you manage premium. So I don't want to scare you like, oh my God, it's going to be this massive increase.
No, but it makes sense. Like there's a reason, like my first vehicle is what they call a beater. You know what I mean? Like I can get dings and dents and it doesn't really matter.
Right. And that happens, right? So the other side of it is I see people buy their kids brand new vehicles, but you're going to have to expect there's probably going to be a dent, a scrape. They're going to, you see those concrete columns, even though they're painted yellow at a gas station, your kid's going to come home and have a yellow streak down the car because they caught it, right? So again, it's just until they get that experience and they get older and we show that 3 years of experience, you'll start seeing your rates adjust, 5 years experience, especially if they've remained clean, no accidents, no tickets.
It's what, like 25 for males, I think, is when I start seeing a drop.
Yeah.
think it's 21 for females.
And
Maybe.
then think about this. I mean, we give good student discounts, right? So if they're good in school, there's discounts that can be applied.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, safe driver discounts. So there's just a lot of things that we can help you with, and we're on your side, right? Yeah, even though I represent a carrier, right? And they pay me. They only pay me because of the customers paying for their premiums, right? So it's in my best interest to educate my customers correctly and make sure that they're happy, they're taken care of, they have the right coverage, and then help them mitigate that premium as much as I can. So they don't feel like they have to cut corners, go somewhere else, try to save $1 and risk the right coverage.
Which, speaking of, you mentioned earlier umbrella. What exactly is an umbrella? Because my insurance agent got that for me and it saved me, but I could not even tell you exactly what it is.
Yeah, so just think about exactly what it is. It's an umbrella, right? And so what's under the umbrella is it's your homeowner's insurance, your auto insurance. Maybe you have some toys, a boat, camper, trailer, whatever it is. It's just one giant umbrella, starts at about $1 million in coverage and goes up from there. But it's at a less rate because each individual policy underneath it, so your auto, your home, or your boat, those coverages kick in first.
Okay.
So for instance, I always say it's in case of a rainy day. And what's the rainy day is my auto insurance wasn't enough to cover that accident. Okay. So let's say you had that 100, 300. Well, I think the minimum is 250, 500 now, but let's say someone got hurt and they were hurt and the bill's 400,000 and your coverage on your auto only pays 250,000. Well, that umbrella on top of that is going to kick in for the other 150, right? Okay. And so that's what is there. It's just there anytime your underlining policies, if that coverage, that liability coverage is breached, now you have a full umbrella. And it's a less expensive way than me going to each one of your policies and raising it to $1 million, right?
Right, because it's like a rainy day. Just in case,
this is a way I can take one policy that covers all your other policies.
Just in case.
Just in case.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, 'cause I had soaked all my camera equipment and I had to claim it under my if he wouldn't have given me that policy the month before it happened, I'd have been out $5,000.
Yeah.
It's good information. I like the way you put that though, because that wasn't explained to me that way, and that makes more sense actually.
So for clarity, the policy for physical damage to cameras is different than the umbrella is liability only, right? Just liability. That's injury. That's that kind of thing. What you're talking about is an endorsement to the policy specific to camera.
Yeah.
Which again, if we don't have a conversation,
then you don't know
and talk about, sometimes people in today's world, the amount of cameras. I just bought one for my wife, a new Sony version. It's an amazing camera, but it's $3,000 by the time you buy the lenses and everything's separate.
Yeah, Sony's separate.
Yeah, everything's separate. And that's just her hobby. It's not what she does for a living, right? Yeah. But there are people that are photographers that's the camera they use for a living. But now we have access to all that stuff. We buy things, Amazon, right? So if we don't have those conversations, we're gonna ask that in the agency. But if you're not having that conversation with your other agent or someone on an 800 number, you're in trouble because that's again at risk, right? And those endorsements are still pennies on the dollar to cover it.
And speaking on that note, my insurance agent told me a situation where it technically was a hobby for the person whose camera, but when they called it in, they said, I use this for my business, so I need it replaced. And because it wasn't endorsed that way, they wouldn't cover it.
Yeah. So if you receive income by using it, it's now a business.
But but the endorsement she had was just for personal hobby use.
Right.
But the moment she said that on the phone, so I guess that's part of having the conversation.
So in that particular instance, it's added to your homeowner's policy, right, as an endorsement. If you've used it for business or you get paid to do it, then it needs to be on its own business policy.
Right.
It's just a different type of policy altogether, right? Because why? So it changes the exposures.
You're right.
Right? Because if I'm just casually at home and I take it out on the weekends or I get pictures of my kid at sports, that's one thing, right? But if I'm getting money for it, then it means I'm out there a more extended time. It's in my car more often, right? I'm people see me out and about. I'm
moving around with
it, and so there's just it changes the exposure, which means as we look at the algorithm and what our carriers are out as a whole, we need to make sure that we get the right premium. No business survives if you pay out more than you take in.
Right.
Insurance is no different. So the only way we can manage that is to make sure that we go through and it's all probability of what happens, as a whole. And it's based by age. So people get grouped up in age, they get grouped up in where they live, they get grouped up type of vehicle. So there's so many of these factors. Is it business use? Is it personal use? But once that's determined, now we can apply the appropriate premium based on probability.
I think that needs to be more talked about too. Is just
Yeah.
because when I hear business or personal, I'm thinking, okay, what business is going to cost more? It's like, it's not
necessarily.
about that. It's about the coverage.
Yeah.
And making sure that you're covered.
Yeah. It's funny because a commercial auto policy oftentimes can be cheaper than a personal policy because it allows for multiple drivers, drivers in different households, company vehicles. And so we know that. And so we change our premiums accordingly, right?
Yeah.
But it's just all about you just want to be upfront and honest and have the conversation with your agent and then let us go to work for you. We start with the right coverage and then we start adding any discounts we can. I'm going to look for a way to mitigate your cost, right? But I'm going to start with covering you correctly. That's the big thing. But again, we're on your side. We're not out to at least I would hope most agents aren't out to gouge you.
Right. If somebody's needing insurance in the Woodstock area, how can they get a hold of you or where can they find you?
I hope they get a hold of us. But we're at 217 River Park North Drive, and that's in Woodstock, Georgia. They can email me, jlarson3@allstate.com, or call or text us at 404-592-4305.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.